Welcome to the 4Fs with Jeff.
What was your dream when you were 5 years old? And what would your life look like today if you would have followed it? Today's guest answers that question and shows us exactly what that looks like. As a 5-year-old kid in Mammoth Mountain in California, Barb Sanders looked up at her ski instructor and thought to herself, I want to be just like you. And she did. From chasing winners across the globe as a ski instructor to building a snow-focused empire consisting of the Snow Magazine, Snow Tequila, the Snow Society, and a soon-to-be snow-centered television pilot, Barb's a perfect example of grit and determination. I loved this conversation. As always, if you find yourself with no more F's to give, I got you covered. Barb, thank you so much for joining the podcast today. I'm really excited to hear this, to hear your story, to get to know you a little bit better. And so on that note, the podcast always starts the same way, which is this. Where are you from?
Well, thanks so much for inviting me to do your podcast. I appreciate it. And I am from Southern California. I grew up in the San Fernando Valley.
I'm surprised by that. I didn't know that. And I'm thinking, okay, so there's got to be a connection from Southern California to skiing. I mean, you know, good waves in Southern California, but I don't think it snows a lot in Southern California, right? How'd you get into skiing?
Well, I was lucky enough that my dad was really into skiing, and he was an ophthalmologist, and he closed his office for 3 days every month. So for 5 days, we would hop in the car and drive to Mammoth, and we were those ski fanatics, and I got to skip school to go skiing, and we did that every month. That was such a huge part of growing up and who I am and what I'm about. And I have a funny story. So I would go into ski school a lot. So my parents would go skiing, and they put me in ski school, and I loved it. And one of my favorite ski instructors was Beverly McCoy, and we are still friends to this day. She's part of the McCoy family that owned Mammoth. And she said to me, she goes, Barb, what do you want to be when you grow up? And I go, Beverly, I want to be just like you. I want to be a ski instructor. And she laughed, and that's what I ended up becoming. And I still teach skiing in Aspen part-time, but I ended up doing that for my entire life. But it started because she really just made all the magic happen when I was a kid.
Now, Barb was 5. In order to come to ski school, whether it was a private lesson or a group lesson, you had to be 6. Barb's father, who was a physician, schooled her in their trip between Los Angeles and Mammoth to say that she was 6. And so very mechanically, when she showed up and all the kids were in line and everybody asked, because kids, sometimes you could tell when they're fibbing. But on Barb, she was determined. She was 6 and she was there and she was going to learn to ski. I was so thankful that I had this well-schooled, spunky, and I was suspicious of her age because of her size. But so as it goes, that began one of just the most wonderful student-teacher relationships that you can have, because you get some real stinkers as students, but she was just special. And her dad would bring her 1 month a year, and I was able to have and enjoy her. And she became, at the end of those 4 or 5 years, a very accomplished, technically correct skier. And she took that skill and her passion to want to be an instructor very seriously. And by the end of her career, she was a supervisor, which is the next person under the head of the ski school director at Mammoth. And so she was well respected, technically an excellent skier, a barrel of fun. That is a great combination. If you can be a leader, be stern, get your people to perform, and be fun too. So she had it all. I mean, she was just that gal on the snow.
That's incredible. Isn't it amazing how like this one relationship turns out to be so impactful? You had, you know, your folks, I'm guessing, didn't know that 3 days of vacation every month are going to end up really, really influencing and impacting how your whole life is going to turn out. That's quite cool. And Beverly, I love that she was quite a role model to you, and that like I could imagine you as a younger person just looking at this person being like, Beverly's so cool. This is she's goals for me. She's exactly where I want to be. I love that.
We're
And you're
still,
still friends with her to that day. That's
I am
special.
friends with her. Yes.
That's so special. Okay. So, there's a lot of things that kids say when they're younger, especially like, I want to do this. And then you did that and you're doing it still. How did you end up making that next step to be able to start teaching skiing?
I guess it was always my happy place. And I had such a connection. There was so much freedom and it was just, I went to college. I did the things I was kind of supposed to do. I got a degree from UC Irvine, and my last year or two, I managed to get the credits I needed, and still graduate while going to Mammoth a lot. I began actually. I was at University of Oregon, and I started teaching up on at Timberline Lodge, and then I transferred to UC Irvine, where I graduated from, and then I started working in Mammoth. And that was just, it made me so happy. I mean, I took the LSATs. I thought I would, okay, I'm going to go to law school maybe. And then the call of the mountains just pulled me in. And I was like, this is what makes me so happy. So that's what I did.
I love that. I'm just curious, how far of it is it from UC Irvine to Mammoth? Is that like you're talking a couple hours, or was this another situation where you're
a 6-hour drive?
okay? So this is a commitment, right? I mean, this is maybe a situation where, hey, Friday classes become a little optional, and get up to get your days in. All right, but it's funny. I hear people. I think about my own time on the mountain, and people talk about them in a special way. Like you said, you say like it was my happy place, and I hear people just kind of refer to their home resort as like it's a little bit magical, and maybe it just or it's, I hear often people often say. So I spend a lot of time skiing at this local resort, which is compared to where we live, there's a lot of other bigger mountain wise resorts. I spent a lot of time at Brighton, and people talk about Brighton and they talk about it like a second home. It's and people feel that way about whatever mountain they're from. And it sounds like you have a special connection to your mountains. I've heard you talk about Aspen before, where you live now, and now I'm hearing you talk about Mammoth, and even when you mentioned Timberline, which I'd never heard of until this moment, there's a little connection there. Am I reading it right?
Oh, totally. It was the first place I learned. I have a friend in Aspen, Jody, who she is from Oregon, so she knows the Timberline Lodge well. And we talk about this one slope that was maybe 10 turns long, and it was so steep. And it was just funny because now we probably wouldn't even turn down it. But that was the beginning of everything. And that's where I first made my connection to the ski tribe. And I remember all of those people, so well, because that's when I became a part of the tribe. But you get really connected to the places especially that you work and teach skiing. So Timberline was a place, Mammoth for sure. Portillo in Chile, I have a really close relationship. I go there every year. It's a really special place. My son, the first time he ever stood up on skis at 6 months old, was in Portillo, and it's just a very special place. And now Aspen.
So I'm interested about the connection with Portillo there, and I love the memory of imagining your kid on skis. I've just 2 questions about this. One is, so how did you find Portillo in the first place? And second, were you brave enough to also teach your kids to ski? Because like there's one thing to like hear it and learn it from an instructor, and I think it takes a special person to be able to also teach their kids, even if you're trained in it, right? Like you might. I'm just curious. It sounds like I'm guessing you did.
Really, are you stupid enough to teach your own kids? Because as any ski instructor knows, you should not teach your own kids. So I mostly had the opportunity to put him in ski school. And actually, on his first day, he ended up going out with Mark Girardelli, 5-time overall World Cup champion, and a couple other pros. We were holding his hands because he'd never stood up without holding on to something. But the ski boots allowed him to stand without, he was holding his bottle, but then he was holding everyone's hand. But I think of the mornings that I would be swearing and sweating, jamming his boots on and trying to get to ski school in time, whether it was here in Aspen or in Portillo, and ski school starts at 10:30 there. And I'm like, how can we be late for a 10:30 start? But, once you get him on the mountain, everything is good. But yeah, the lead in is hard. And, I do tell families, leave it to the professionals because there is a reason.
I think that's solid advice. And the visual, by the way, of your 6-month-old son, like in his ski boots, holding on to the bottle in front of him, that's perfect. I just love that. At this point, it sounds like you had already had a good relationship with a lot of folks in skiing or did you just happen to stumble across 5-time world champions on the ski hill that day? I mean, that's not
Well,
something that happens to everybody.
Portillo thing is you get to interact. You're sitting at dinner and Michaela Schifrin walks by, or the world, especially the ski world, ends up in Portillo for one reason or another. So you make some kind of crazy connections that you don't normally or necessarily make. So it's special in that way.
People want to talk to you, want to be around you, and you also like to talk and be around people. And I feel like you're giving a lot of credit to a ski resort here, but I think, and I believe there's probably some truth to that. I think also I'm seeing a lot here from you, and that you just have the kind of personality that brings people together. That magnetic, I guess, is the word that I'm writing. I hesitated to say it because it sounds like a little cliche, but also I can't think of a better word for that. Have you always been kind of a person who is like drawn to other people and really social in that way, or is this something that's developed at some point in your life?
Yeah, I think so. I think one of the greatest compliments I received was someone says, "You're the glue." And I was like, I like that because my relationships are so important. I also taught skiing for many years in New Zealand, and I'm still close friends with the people I taught skiing with in New Zealand. I don't know, it's getting close to 40 years ago, and I still have so many close relationships. Social media and some of those things have helped, but my relationships are everything. And it's fun when they just all come together, whether it's something I'm doing with the magazine or, my friend who I taught skiing with in Mammoth in New Zealand, and she lives in Chamonix, and her son is one of the best free skiers in the world. And, all those crazy connections. So, we have to do a story. And, it's fun when all those things come together because our world is so connected. I mean, I'm talking to you because we met on a tourist bus going to Stonehenge. What,
Yeah,
15 years ago?
13. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So it's crazy.
Incredible. Yeah.
Everything is connected and comes together. So, I like that.
I do too. And so there's something special about your personality that, like, to your point, we met on a tourist bus 15 years ago, uh, on the way to Stonehenge, and something about like our, however long that interaction was, I thought, you know, Barb's a good enough friend of mine that I can reach out and ask her if she's going to be on my podcast. And we haven't really talked in a decade, but yeah, we're close enough that can happen. And sure enough, it's there. So I don't know. I think that's a unique trait that not everybody has. So all right. So back to the timeline. So Warren, you're in California, you finished college and you took the LSAT and you were like, maybe not. And you decided, did you stick around just kind of teaching skiing in California for a while, or where did you end up going after that?
So I worked at Mammoth for 17 years. I taught skiing there. I was a supervisor on the ski school. And
Wow.
in those days, I was teaching skiing year round. So I finished the season in Mammoth, and then I'd go to New Zealand. And Mammoth has a long season. New Zealand has a long season. So I was skiing almost all year round, traveling a little bit in between. And then after I traded New Zealand for Chile because I wanted to work on my Spanish. So skiing was 100% my life and my passion. And that's what I did.
Wow. So back to this idea of your role model that you had with Beverly and your idea, like, I want to teach skiing. You had this idea, you worked through it. And then and then you finished college, and then at some point, and then you decided, hey, I'm actually really going to go this, and I'm going to make this my life. Did you know that you were going to make it your life? Was it like, this is forever? Or was it like, I'll do this for a year or two and see whatever happens? Or was it always just like, no, this is in my rear view now. College is in, did it, it's done. And I'm never taking off my ski boots essentially for the rest of my life.
I mean, I was very focused, and that's what all my friends were doing, and my community. And then I was traveling the world, which is another huge passion of mine. So when I wasn't skiing, I was traveling. And so I'd go to New Zealand, and on the way home, I'd go travel through Asia. And then in Chile, I would travel through South America. So, one time I ended up working actually for a little bit at a ski resort in Kitzbühel and teaching skiing there. So skiing was a way to see the world and be with my favorite people because they loved what I loved. And it was, yeah, I really, because I was so in that ski world, I wasn't thinking about, wow, maybe I should have been a lawyer or do other things because I was happy doing what I did. And it really wasn't until I came to Aspen and one of my ski clients asked me what I thought about the magazines that were out there. Because I had been doing a little writing for some magazines out there, one in the UK, and I do some humorous articles like why choose going to the gym or go to après ski when you can combine them. And so I write some sort of funny article. And for a while, I did some ski instructional articles for Skiing Magazine with AJ Kitt, who was one of the top American ski racers at the time. And he was the ski racer, I was the ski pro. So I did a little bit of this. So my ski client asked me, what do you think? And I said, the magazines are very sports centric. They're not really talking about the lifestyle, the fashion, just that whole world. And he said, "Well, why don't you pitch me?" And I was like, "Whoa, are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, you have the passion." He's like, "I started my first magazine. I was a pro water skier. And even though I didn't know the magazine business, I knew that world and loved it. So that was my start." So I went home and I put together a pitch and came back, and he merged with a big Swedish company, Bonnier. And Snow Magazine ended up becoming the first launch with this new partnership.
Wow. Were you still in Mammoth at this time, or was this after a transition to Aspen?
This is when I had moved to Aspen, where I got invited to teach skiing. Tony Fry was a ski school director then, and I had met him. I was at a demo team tryout for a ski instructor for the PSIA demo team. And he said, you've been in Mammoth for a long time. Why don't you come check out Aspen? And my friend Greg Harms, who was a heli guide and a dear friend, he had just moved to Aspen. And I was like, well, why not? I'll give it a go. And I had a few other friends from Mammoth who were in Aspen. They said, come. So I did. And it was a totally different experience because Mammoth was a more local people from LA coming to Mammoth at that time. Now it's more of an international resort because of air service. But but Aspen, the world came to Aspen. So it was really, really very international, which I loved.
Wow. I love that it's another thing where you meet someone for a short period of time and that gluey connection gets real strong really fast. I like that. I'm curious, what was your pitch like? Do you remember? Was it formal? Were you in a spreadsheet making things out, or did you write it out? What did your
I
pitch
did
include?
but I did some work with what I felt like was missing in the industry. For me, that was really the focus on fashion and apparel. People hang on to their gear. If they like it, they don't necessarily want to get new boots or skis, but they really, getting a new sweater, jacket, or apparel, just kind of, it's motivation to get out there on the hill. And I felt like there wasn't a magazine out there that was really addressing it and addressing some of the other things that make the ski world so special. And I wanted to focus on people. So I would say fashion and people were really key to me because that's your experience, that's your connection, and that's your hookup. So those were some of my key points. And yeah, I'm not a super organized person, so I'm sure I didn't write some great business plan or anything like that. But I convinced him, and I think in the beginning people were freaking out. They're like, "Oh my God, Terry Snow let a ski instructor, heaven forbid, start a magazine." No, I actually heard that as that's what people were saying. And I didn't have the cred. Sure, I did some freelance articles, but I didn't understand the magazine business. In fact, when I went to my first trade show, people would say, "Talk to me about your circulation." And I go, "Well, okay, that's a really strange question. When it's really cold, I'm cold, but no, Barb, how many copies are you printing of this magazine?" So I learned a lot really quickly about the magazine biz. And when I'd kind of freak out, like, "Oh my God, I don't know all these things," the person who gave me the green light to do this said, "But you know this business, you know it inside and out." At that time, I had worked for ESPN and NBC doing World Cup ski coverage. I'd already worked at the Olympics for NBC in Salt Lake. So I had this real connection to the business, but I was nervous because I didn't know the magazine world. But I quickly learned the magazine world. I learned, what cover 2, page 1 was, and C4, and, all the terms. And I got up to speed pretty quickly. But in the beginning, it was a lot.
Something that stood out to me is your comment about Terry. Someone made off.
Terry
Terry
Snow,
hired Terry
funny
Snow.
enough, was
Yeah.
what he had a company called World Publications, and he had a lot of enthusiast titles, whether they were culinary or sport, they were fishing, water skiing, and then he merged with Bonnier. Yeah.
And you said someone made an offhanded comment about Terry hired a ski instructor to run this magazine, and to your point, it was true. But also, I mean, this wasn't your first time on the mountain. You'd been around. You had a lot of experience, and you'd done a bunch of other things. And also, Terry clearly saw something in you that was special, and he knew that it was there, and he recognized all the right pieces were there, and clearly he was right. But I'm curious. I don't really know anything about publishing world. I don't know anything about the publishing world actually, but there are extra complexities, I think, when you come with like a non-standard pedigree like that. And what I'm wondering, this is twofold. So was that kind of something that you heard as a one-off, or was this a hurdle that you had to overcome many times? And also, I come from a background of technology, and I've been seeing, and I'm becoming more aware of the hurdles that women face in tech, especially, as a founder and owner. Was there any of that? Like, is there any kind of this old boys club that happens in publishing, that extra hurdles that or complexities that you were faced with as you were trying to start, run, and grow your magazine and your other ventures?
There were, for sure. And it was an intimidating world. And there would be group publishers that would come in and all of a sudden be in charge of like 7 titles, and Snow was one of them. And they did things certain ways. And it was very intense and intimidating. I guess what it taught me is that because out of the gate, I managed to come up with enough advertisers to support it. I was able to work with a top photographer, Daniela Federici, and I was so green in those days. I look back and I'm so proud of like our first ever cover, our first ever fashion photo shoot, and all those things. But I was it was not an easy path. And then I didn't, all my ski friends, they couldn't help me. They didn't know that much. I dragged my friend Joni to the trade shows in Las Vegas, and we'd try and learn together of what we needed to do and how we could sell an ad. And I'd sell an ad and she'd run around and do the happy dance. And, some people there was like, I talked to him and I couldn't get him to bite. And she's like, I'm going to run naked around the block if that person buys an ad. We just we made the best of it. But, now so many years later, I think, well, I guess I learned to survive and make things work in a world I wasn't knowledgeable in. I have a poli-sci degree. My poli-sci degree did not really teach me to be a publisher. So those are the things I had to learn and figure out really on my own. And then about 4 or 5 years in, Bonnier decided they were pulling out of the US. They had bought all the Time Inc. titles. So they own like 100 magazines in the US and they started pulling out. I think they still own a few titles. I'm not sure, but they pulled out of all the ski magazines. They own Skiing, Warren Miller, NASCAR, all these things. And they pulled back, and I decided I wasn't done, that I wanted to keep going. So I spent a lot of money to buy a noun, snow, and I kept going. And that's when I really learned, wow, I was at a big company and I had a graphic designer. I had someone in charge of distribution and this, and someone who oversaw my printing and all those things. And so then I really had to learn everything because I had to recreate everything myself and figure out how to make a magazine out of my house in Aspen. So I was working independently well before COVID.
Wow. You said you spent a lot of money, and I can only imagine. I'm not asking for a number here, but let me ask this: did you just use was this savings money, or did you look for investors again in this case?
No, it's I figured out how to make it happen. It's my money. I got my dad to help me because I knew I wasn't done. They would have thrown it
Yeah.
in the trash. They only sold it because they knew I wanted it. So they're like, okay, well, it was our money to make, to get this up and running. But the problem with a magazine is that once the magazine goes out, you start from scratch again. So yeah, I had a name and a bit of had developed a reputation and things like that, but it was, I was still starting from scratch each year.
Was the idea you mentioned just now that they only sold it because they knew you wanted because they knew you wanted it? Was that another kind of just a move from some folks in industry to try to kind of stick it to an up and comer, or just what do you think that was about?
I don't know. I think they were like really going, well, how do we recoup something? We said yes to this. How do we get something back? We put so much time and energy into it. What do we get back? So I think it was purely money related.
It had already been successful by other metrics, right? I mean, you talked about circulation. I don't know if you remember what those were, but I mean, you had a fairly good reader, fairly good audience that was reading this magazine consistently. Your advertisers were spending money, and you were doing things successfully, right? At least from what I can tell. Or am I missing that?
No, things were working, and I had mostly repeat business, which is great, and I'm really proud of that. That most of the people, my advertisers, I'd say I have something like I don't know, 85% retention rate. And, maybe they'll miss an issue, but they'll come back. I have one advertiser here in Aspen Signature Properties. They have been in every issue I've done. And I used to do 3 a winter. Now I do 2 a winter, but that means a lot to me because they've been with me the entire time. But it is a relationship, and I don't flip through the pages of the magazine and everything is, so like here's my latest issue with Chelsea Handler on the cover, which was so much fun. But I look through and it's like, okay, this is Tony Seiler, but this is also Henri. I go to the next page. This is Gorsuch. This is the Gorsuch family. I worked with them. Okay, this is Miller Sports. This is Ted Davenport. So they're people and relationships that are really meaningful to me.
Clearly, those relationships are not one way either, because those people wouldn't keep showing up if they didn't value the relationship with you. And also, frankly, look, those are business owners and business people, and so they wouldn't show up if it wasn't effective, if it wasn't getting results that they needed, they wouldn't show up. So I like this idea that I'm starting to see a trend emerge where you believe in yourself. Like you have a strong, like you knew what you wanted to be. You had your role model in Beverly, and I'm going to be a ski instructor. And like, I can just do this. I'm just going to do this. And then you did. And then you have this idea of, I'm going to start a magazine. I have this idea. I'm going to start a magazine or this opportunity. And I'm just going to do this. And then you did. And then you're like, I'm going to bet on myself again, and I'm going to use my savings, and I can do this, and it's going to be okay. And you did. And that's really, really impressive that you believe in yourself, and also that other people were able to see this, that you were able to, not only you believed in yourself and you made this happen, but people who knew you were like, yeah, I also believe in Barb. They were, helping support you and help make this work. And I think this is a really long, a really long comment, but, people will, I feel like people will sometimes believe, maybe they'll believe in you once or give you a chance, but the fact that people keep showing up for you and they keep doing it is just really, really impressive. This reputation that you've developed of being able to have an idea, create something out of nothing, and then execute on it. That's exceptional. Ideas are easy. The execution is, I think, not. I'm thinking back to our timeline. So you're there in Aspen, you've run the magazine, it's separated, you bought it back, and then you're moving forward on your own and figuring out. I think you mentioned in a previous conversation about how that was, there were a few things that stood out to you when you made that move of that, oh goodness, there were a handful of things that happened, or a lot of things that happened because I was just part of this big company. Now I got to figure this out. Was there another learning curve there as you're figuring this whole thing out?
And I remember that very clearly, because in the old days, there was this trade show in Munich, ISPO, and I would go every year and I'd meet all of the people from the ski world internationally. And I had just basically gotten fired in December, and I hadn't figured out, how to move forward yet. It wasn't just a question of buying the magazine back, but I had no path. And I remember I was at this trade show, and Rosignol invited me to go to this event in Montreal. They were like, when you leave, we want you to fly home. We want you to fly straight to Montreal. We want you to be a part of this event we're doing for Rosignol Apparel in Montreal. And I was like, wow, someone still cares about me. I thought I was like irrelevant because I just got fired. And I was so excited. And so I rerouted my flight and I went, and it was actually there that I connected with an old contact that was in the magazine business, but we knew each other she was running Ski Press in Canada, and I was doing snow, and we knew each other, and she was publishing different publications, not necessarily ski related, but she was in that business. So we connected, and I got basically up and running, and she helped me with an art director and some of the things that were needed. So for a few years, we worked together, and she provided that kind of back office. And then I ended up doing everything back in-house in the US, because she was based in Montreal, and doing everything here in Aspen.
Wow. And so how long did this kind of 2-location relationship go on for?
So I worked for her for about 3 years. I was back in business, was thanks to
Nice.
Anne-Marie Boissonneau. And she got me back in business, and continuing and figuring out how to learn the magazine business on my own, doing everything myself, but with her help with a number of things. And then after that, I ended up meeting Julius Yoder, who I've worked with for, God, I don't know, I guess we're going on something 12 or 13 years we've been working together. And he's the beauty behind Snow Magazine and everything we do visually, digitally, and we work remotely. He's in North Carolina now, used to be in South Carolina, and he had been living in Aspen right when I made this change, but we started working together, and everyone else on my team is a freelancer. My editor, Leslie Voigt, is in Banff. All my writers and photographers are all over the world.
What are this is going to show my ignorance here to publishing, but what are the kind of the key roles that you need when you're running a magazine? Obviously, you need someone yourself. You're the owner, CEO. You mentioned Julius, I think, with the Julius.
Julian, yeah.
Yeah,
He's
yeah,
my art
Julius.
director. So
Okay,
you can't make a magazine without a
sure.
graphic designer.
Okay. So there's you have the vision, like the general vision for the magazine. Julius is the art director. He like you said, I think you said he's the beauty behind everything in Snow. And then what else? What are the other key pieces that you needed to run a magazine successfully?
An editor-in-chief. Usually it's a sales team, but mostly the sales have been me because I've tried here and there to have sales people. I had people in New York doing sales, but it's easier. Seems like it works better coming from me because I know it so well. And I guess it's the passion. I have one person I've worked with since the Bonnier days, Debbie Top, who's in Canada, and she's a gem of a human being. And I'm so grateful that I've worked with her since the Bonnier days. So we can, we can riff on those days when those scary group publishers would come in because she worked with another publication there, and we're still together.
That's tremendous. And another relationship that's just, spanning this time for you. I like that. So yeah, so you have someone from sales, and then you have someone, the creative person. Yeah. How do you handle the physical aspects of the printing and all of that? I'm guessing taking it from digital to print and then getting it in people's hands. That's a whole, another set of
It
tasks.
is a lot. It's I had to figure out who was going to do the printing, finding a great printer, finding a reasonable printer, delivering the files. Like Julius was an artist, but he was an artist and a techie. He's both. He can build websites, and it doesn't normally come together, but he never delivered a magazine before. So there's a lot of, unique skill set for that type of thing. Early on, someone approached me who said, I saw your magazine and it's beautiful. I'd like to talk to you about printing it. So I've worked with this person for now quite a while. I used to print with him, and he's my print manager and actually goes on press and makes sure all of the tones are perfect. I mean, that's such an art form, printing. So, I've worked with Micah now for, yeah, probably 12 years, something like that, where he's been my print manager and handles everything and makes sure the files are perfect. So I have a liaison there between me and the printer, and that's nice.
And is the physical magazine, is it direct mail to folks, or where does it, how do people like?
It's so I put together this print order, and I send to specialty sports retailers, I send first class airport lounges, I have direct mail, I have subscribers, I send to hotels, wherever I have the audience lines up. I I try to get the magazine there. In places like Aspen, I'm at the airport when you land. I'm all around the town. I'm in room in the top hotels. So it's a mix in each of the markets, but it's highly curated.
Did you come up with this list, or how did you develop this? I'm thinking in my mind, my guess is, well, this makes sense. Of course you knew, or I could see how you would figure this out because you'd spent so much time in skiing by the time you had already started this effort. But is that the case? I might be ascending. I don't know. I'm just curious how your list seems, it's one of those things you hear and like, oh, that makes perfect sense. Of course, that's where you'd put it. But then I'm thinking, well, yeah, I mean, it's probably not intuitive to everybody. You figured this out on your own. So how did you figure that out? That's the right mix.
Some of it I had learned with Bonnier. They taught me a few things of how, what's done when you have, so snow is what they call a controlled circulation. So you get it in front of the people who are going to most resonate with it. I'm headed to Texas next week to do an event for the Tequila, but I sent magazines because a lot of the members of this private club, they're really passionate skiers. So I send magazines there. So some of it's a one-off, and some of it I do all the time. It's a mix and match, just so I can get the magazine in front of people who are going to enjoy it.
Casually just now you mentioned, oh yeah, and that's how we, got into the ski club and then the tequila as well. So maybe this is an opportunity to introduce those couple of things, because you've taken this Snow magazine and it stands by itself, but you're also expanding this into several other things, and I really like what you're doing there. So I was wondering if you want to introduce those two items that you talked about, which are the tequila and then the club that you called it.
Well, I ended up starting the Snow Society as a way to bring the magazine to life because I know people are looking for more than sitting on their couch and reading a magazine. They want to live these experiences. So I started the Snow Society, and the concept was extraordinary alpine experiences. And it was friends telling friends. It's a way, there's so many people who love skiing, but they don't know a lot of people who like skiing. So I'm the conduit. A lot of my advertisers, I kick off the season with a demo day where they get to try all the new gear. The one year we skied with Bodie Miller. Last year we skied with Travis Ganong and Van Deer skis. So it's different every year, but so the members all get to try whatever's new. And I take them on trips around the world. This year we're going to the Olympics in Cortina. I work with my advertising partners, so we have an event with Montclair at their store in Cortina. Jet Set's putting on an event with them for us. So I try to step it up a notch wherever we go, where special, really extraordinary things happen, whether we're skiing in Courchevel or Lech in Austria or Portillo in Chile. I started that, I guess, about going on 5 years now, the private membership club. And I'll also hook my members up with, oh, let's say they're doing a family trip and they want to go skiing in the Dolomites. So I'll look after them and I'll make sure that even though I'm not going on the trip, that I connect all the dots so that they have an amazing time. They have the best guides. It's the people in the industry that make things so phenomenal. So when I connect the dots, whether it's for their shopping or their boot fitting or ski rental, I keep it very personal. I work with a ski company out of Monaco, and they brought skis to one of my members who was skiing in the Dolomites. And, wherever I can connect the dots, personally, I do. And then the tequila was actually my son. His friend invited him to Cabo, and his mom said, I want to start a tequila company and I want to call it Snow. Well, she's German and she has a wellness background, and she wanted to start a very clean, pure tequila. And for her, Snow was the cleanest thing she could think about. She grew up skiing in Switzerland and Austria, and so it was Snow. So my son just starts laughing and says, well, you should talk to my mom. She's like Snow everything. So we met and went skiing, almost similar to the Snow magazine story, where, we had this whole conversation on the gondola. Turns out she has 4 kids, all named after ski resorts. So you were mentioning Brighton. Brighton is one of her son's names. So she has
Nice.
Moritz, Brighton, Chamonix, and Soleil. So it's like, oh my God, here's someone as crazy as I am. And she's naming their children after ski resorts. So we set off on this this journey to create the experience of après ski. Because après ski doesn't have its own beverage. There's shot skis and body shots. And usually you're doing that with tequila, but we felt like we should have our own tequila. So it was once again like publishing, something I knew very little about, except, I knew how to drink tequila. But so we started learning about the industry, and we decided from the very beginning we wanted pure and clean. We didn't want additives. And we were going to be a female owned and operated business. And we wanted that all the way through the chain. So we wanted a maestra instead of a maestro. We wanted women at the distillery doing our packaging. And that was what was important. And that's what we had, this idea that the connection would be the mountains, because that was our passion, and that we would have this spirit and this brand that we would create. But the glue in this situation was love for the mountains and being outdoor and sliding on snow to begin with. So
That's
we
amazing.
got started in this, and it's been a very enlightening journey. It's been a lot of highs and lows. I thought the magazine business was hard. This is definitely the hardest thing I've done in my life. I'd say the ski business, there's more of a family and a camaraderie and a community that doesn't really exist in the alcohol business. It's more cutthroat. So it's not enough. So we're really proud. We have a great product. People love it. People try it and they say, "Oh, it's so smooth." And we say, "No, it's snow smooth."
Ooh, I
So we have
like that.
a brand and this great product that we are so proud of. We definitely have some big wins out there where, we're in SoFi Stadium in Los Angeles, where you've opened 10 different states. So that's exciting for us. But it is very, very hard. And now with the government shutdown, it's even harder. So just as we're gearing up and things are going better and better and better, we're cut off at the knees.
Oh, that's so frustrating. Gosh. But you're still going to go this is still going to happen. This is not going to, I mean,
Oh
maybe it's
no,
maybe a slowdown and not, but there's no way I can see this, not finishing. There've been too many we've just talked about now of these things where you're like, this is going to happen and then it happens and you make it happen. Your execution is, there's no way this isn't going to happen.
I mean, it is all about perseverance. I mean, if I can say anything, I don't want to paint some picture that isn't true because there have been a lot of tears. Let's just say that. I've had to dig really deep and thinking about what I've done with Snow Magazine, what I did with this club, trying to get my member number one for the club. I have 110 members, and then that was a hardship of proving myself and proving all these things. I recently just wrote a book and it took me 20 years, but I finished it and it's out on the market. But the tequila, it's just very male dominated. So I think people see, two women and go, yeah, right. So, but like I said, we now have one of the biggest names in the world of tequila is our maestra. She invented the aroma wheel back in 2004, and she's a big deal in the world. So, we have a lot going for us, and it's trying to make those connections in the spirit world, or with the resorts, with the different ski resorts to make things happen.
So you mentioned, you said this is the hardest thing I've done, the snow tequila, but also you're also so excited about it. There's something about this where there's this big challenge in front of you, but also it seems like to you the outcome is just so much more worth it that you're. I guess, yeah, that's what I'm asking is what is it about the relationship between a big challenge and then seeing something ahead of you that isn't just helping you just trudge through it? Because when I hear you talk, I'm hearing you acknowledge that, hey, this is hard and there were tears, but also I'm hearing you talk about it with like a lot of joy and you're really excited about this. You're feeding off of this challenge. Am I seeing that right? Or is it really this, we got to do this. We're going to figure it out.
No, you are. And that's when the magic happens, when everything comes together and we're like, yes, let's do this. Your brand is so much about our brand. And yeah, we get it. Like we're launching in Europe in the next 2 weeks and it's just starting to happen. And we finished the season. It was already April and we had gotten a bottle to Folie Douce, which has these restaurants and they do entertainment all over Europe. And they got a bottle and they posted it on their Instagram, and it was like, yes, they're like, snow tequila, how cool, and it was really great. So when that magic happens, it's like, yes, people get the brand and who we are and what we're doing, and that it's fun. I mean, that's the whole thing with skiing is that it's fun. This is our world. It's the mountains, it's outdoors, it's freedom. And that's what we created our brand to be about. So yeah, there is a lot and it's about perseverance. I mean, I'll be honest, my biggest downfall is I take things personally. And you can't. You can't. You have to let things go. So, I need to put the Frozen song on autoplay. No, let it go, Barb. I have to do that every single day, and not to sweat the small things. And it's a long journey. So, the next podcast I'm on talking about the journey, I can go, okay, here's what I learned in the last 6 months and what it's taught me. And if it's taught me anything, it has taught me that I can do everything. I mean, so I published this book. I have a TV show I'm ready to go on. That we have a team in place. We're looking at fundraising, and it's not like I know the TV world, but it's based on it's set at a ski resort, and it's like, so I'm telling myself, okay, just because I don't know the TV world, I know some people, and they know that, and we have a great story that we wrote, and we'll figure it out. So I think the tequila especially has taught me that, okay, we learned everything. Not everything, there's always more to learn. You learn more what you don't know every day, but it's not doesn't block your path.
So you just casually again drop, oh, well, there's a TV show that's coming out. Can you talk to this, or is it too early that you can't really mention more, except that
It's
there's
called Powder Keg, and
it's a great name.
we're working on getting a pilot shot because we love this and we believe in it. We have a great pilot that's already written, and it's a great story. And it's like, I don't know why, there's so many shows that are set at on a ranch in Wyoming or at a ranch in Montana, that there needs to be something in the ski world.
There really does. I completely agree with that. I'm surprised that it. Well,
I'm surprised it doesn't already exist. Yeah.
Yeah, especially now with all the technology that you can do and sets and everything. I could see a long time ago maybe it's hard to find a place where you can do it. But I mean, hey, you happen to live in a place where there's it snows a little bit. And they happen to know a little bit about production and snow, and so
Yeah.
That's exciting. So your pilot's written, and you're just working on shooting. Shooting it. Do you think it'll be like? I mean, like, can you say like how close you are to actually like starting to shoot the pilot? Is that going to happen in the next couple?
We need to do some fundraising right now. We need to do some fundraising because right now the situation is it's hard to get things greenlit and and a lot of the big streaming companies are not so used to the snowy world. So it seems like skiing and action seems a little bit hard to take on, but that's what we know and we love. And I just make one phone call for the team to shoot any action. So yeah, so we have some fundraising, but we're ready to go once we do that.
Well, I can't imagine that this isn't going to happen. I'm looking forward to watching this show whenever it shows up, and I'm excited about this. Okay, so all right, so I have a question about. Well, I have two questions actually. One is, I was wondering, can you tell me a little bit more about the Maestra? I think I'm not obviously not familiar with the tequila world at all, but and did I use her title right? The Maestra?
Maestra, yeah.
Maestra,
like a maestro,
thank you.
Like
A Maestro, but okay.
Bradley Cooper in the movie Maestro.
Yes, Maestro.
The female version is a maestra.
Maestra, and that's the person that would they be the equivalent of like a brewmaster if they were making beer? But this
exactly.
is okay.
And so our tequila, we make a Cristalino Reposado. So it's aged for 6 months in red and white wine and bourbon barrels. So there's a little bit of upcycling there with old barrels that we age in.
I like that.
And then we're filtering with charcoal because we're snow. We don't want brown snow. So we make Cristalinos. We'll always make Cristalinos. Some people say, oh, you can't taste the notes of the agave, but we use more pinas per liter, and you can taste the notes of the agave, even though we make a Cristalino. But I let people they can decide for themselves because, if they have a preconceived notion, that's what they're going to find.
Yeah, that's a good point. What you look for stands out. Depending on the barrel that you get or the batch, do you get a slightly unique flavor profile because of these upcycled barrels that you're using?
Totally.
Oh,
I don't think fun. I mean, you have your flavor profile, but it's still Not always 100% consistent. There's always intricacies that come. That's the reason you age it, because it gives you that personality.
Yeah, that's a really good. I never thought about the aging and the personality because, I guess I'm guessing because of, even if you're in a temperature controlled environment, if something is off just a little bit different, or the any variable changes, including the wood or whatever you have, like that adds a lot. Would it be fair to say there's even a little bit of a handcrafted flavor to different batches because of slight variations through the aging process and how they interact with the barrels and other things?
I don't want to speak on behalf of our
Yeah,
maestro.
fair.
Who
Okay.
really, I mean, it's so intricate. He invented this aroma wheel. There are
Yeah.
like over 100 different aromas that contribute. She was one of the first people who, when people first started sipping tequila, and it was like wine, you do a dégustation de vin with wine. She she started the degustation of tequila, and it's so intricate what's involved. But the aging process, we have a new bottle that'll come out at the end of the year, early next year, that has mountain peaks in the cap. And that will probably have an extra añejo, and that'll have to be aged over a year. And then we will still filter it because we're snow. So it'll still be a cristalino añejo.
I don't know what an añejo is. I'm sorry.
So an añejo means it's so reposado is aged for 6 months.
Okay.
Añejo is a year.
Oh, a
So
year.
it
I
refers
knew.
back to the aging process. I mean, it's such an interesting world. We've learned so much. Our distillery owner is a really crazy cool guy, and he's super passionate. He looks like a ZZ Top band member hitting the runway in Milan, and he is so passionate about the world of tequila and so knowledgeable. And we're excited to be working with them.
That's a lot of fun. I like them. Could we come back to just for a second to the Snow Society and getting your members? Is this so? This how you talked about the struggle of finding your first member, and I think that's something that probably a lot of people who are trying to start something and going that ability to go from 0 to 1 is just, I think, a really, really common hurdle for people to get over. So I'm interested to know about how you went about getting that first member. And then the second thing I want to know about is in general, if how does one go about becoming a member of this of the society? Is it can anybody apply? Is it you got to get an invite, or yeah?
You need to get an invite. So it's more friends telling friends. But
Okay.
I can invite you. You can reach out to me and about it. But
Thanks.
I built a pretty compelling intro package. So I said, if
Okay.
you join this first year, you're a founding member, you'll pay once and you won't pay again. So I had a few incentives because I've learned through all these years that I'm okay with proving myself. I find this is when I realize I'm old, is that I'm happy to prove myself. And then I want people to be there because they want to be there. I can only fight so hard to convince someone to advertise, to convince someone to buy my tequila, to convince someone to join the club. I want them to understand what it's about. I'm proud of what I'm doing in the club and want to be a part of it. Otherwise, I don't know that I can make that person happy. So I find when it's friends telling friends, like, oh God, this is so cool. I went on this trip. We skied with Axel and Spindal in Italy. It was ridiculous. And then their friends are like, oh my God, I want to do that. Are you kidding me? You were skiing with Bodie Miller? So I want that to happen as opposed to, well, if you join, here's the bullet points of what you get. That's kind of where I'm at with all these things is I can't convince people anymore. They just have to see it and get it. I can preach and share and be passionate all I want, but they have to get what what we're doing and what we're about, and then I have to let it go.
I think there's so much wisdom in that. This idea of knowing your value, and also related, knowing the value of what you're representing. I like that comment there because That's a hard lesson to learn. Gosh, I think a lot of people it seems to tend to tie their value. I mean, I have for a lot of time tied my value to things around me, and that's I love that you thank you for summarizing that and giving it a description in such an effective way. That's great. Also, probably it makes your customers a little bit easier to deal with because you're not selling on a specific hard value. It's more about, it just seems a better model all the way around. I like it.
Because I don't have any knives to give them, and I'm definitely not giving them my set of steak knives.
Oh, yeah. That's awesome. Yeah. Well said. Okay. So your other challenge that we haven't really dug into, you mentioned it lightly, but you decided to complete a project that, goes well with what you've all been doing successfully for a long time, but you decided to write a book or finish writing a book. But I think you mentioned in a previous conversation that this has been a project that's been going on for a while. So how did this book very first come about? And I'm looking forward to my copy, by the way. I ordered it. It should be here hopefully in the next few days. But yeah.
Well, I met this extraordinary woman when I was teaching skiing in Portillo, and we got to become great friends. And I learned about her life and her experience growing up in Chile during the years of the Pinochet dictatorship. And I was, younger in those days, and it was hard to understand, like how some of the things that happened to her, how could that have happened? Being an American, and I don't know, it was just a crazy story. So, and I felt like it was a story that needed to be told. And, in a nutshell, she, I don't know, I don't want to give away too much of the book, but she fell in love. She was a competitive horse rider, and she fell in love with another equestrian. And she was very young, and she got pregnant and had kids right away. And, but her father in law was a general for Pinochet, and she had some challenges in her marriage. She was super young, and a lot of things went wrong. And, kind of cut to the chase, she ended up losing her children, which kind of shocking for in a Catholic country that divorce wasn't legal, and she lost her children because they defamed her, basically. And they could do it because there was a military dictatorship running the country. So to get her life back, a friend suggested going up to Portillo just as a way to not, to get away from everything. And she went up there and she learned to tune skis because the US ski team was in-house in Portillo at the time. She was working with the best of the best, and she learned to tune skis, and she loved tuning skis. And she ended up meeting someone else who invited her to come to the United States, and she got a job tuning skis at an elite level for the US ski team. And what ended up happening is she was tuning for the development team at the time, and then worked her way up. But these boys who were on the ski team, ended up becoming like her children that she lost. They were the same age as her kids. So it's such a multidimensional story because it's love, it's loss, it's her journey as a mother and all of that loss, reinventing herself, having nothing, have no reputation. And Chile is more of a country. She tells a story of like, if you stole a pencil in kindergarten, you're always the kid who stole the pencil. Whereas I think with the US, we can recreate ourselves all the time, and our past doesn't necessarily follow us. So she reinvented herself, and the job is called ski man. So she is the only, or was, she passed away, unfortunately. She was the only woman to have ever tuned skis at an elite level, and she won a Europa Cup with Steven Nyman, and that's probably will never happen again. I don't know, but she's the only woman who ever achieved that. And unfortunately, she died of breast cancer 2 years ago. So it was the motivation. I should have finished it sooner, but I wanted to do this to honor the extraordinary woman that she was and tell her story because it's really inspirational. It's great to find this inspiration of just normal people trying to live their life and make things work in really difficult circumstances.
That's amazing. You never have any idea what people have gone through to get to where they are. You know, that this woman, to your point, you can, maybe that's a normal, I like the way you said a normal person. And also she's doing just extraordinary things that maybe people have never even heard of, like winning the Europa Cup and and rising to that level in a niche that I didn't know until before now that was even such a specific role or a job that someone needed. But of course, when you say it, it makes sense. Yes, of course, ski tuning is crucial. They have to have everything exactly right to perform at the exact level for the snow that they're on and the altitude and everything else. But I would never think about it as a specific role, but also so important. That's amazing. Wow. That's quite a story of perseverance, I guess, to use
Yeah.
your word from earlier. That's neat. Was it a challenge? I mean, just emotionally to write that, I'm guessing, or you said, I think you said you had worked on it a while, but then the last, finishing it now, or was it cathartic?
Probably both. I mean, as she told me story after story after story, it was just shocking to hear and to just that had happened to to her. Um, the best thing is at that point she was reunited again with her children. So as we started writing the story, I knew the end of the story already because she had a relationship with her boys. So knowing that made things easier. And but it was just a story that we felt like that we really wanted to tell. We always saw it very visually because Chile is one of the most beautiful countries I've ever been to in my life. So, we always saw like, let's write the book, but we always wanted to do a screenplay and tell the story visually. And now with the magazine background, I'm a very visual person, but it's she's an inspiration to me. Just everything she went through and her cancer battles later in life, and she's a very brave individual. So, when things are tough, I think of, what she went through. I have so many friends that are such an inspiration. Like you said, we don't know what everyone's going through and what they're dealing with.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thanks for the breakdown. And her name. So there are two names on the cover of the book. She is what's the?
Amela Cara.
Okay, thank you. I'm really looking forward to reading it. I think that sounds like a just sounds inspirational. And I enjoy an inspirational story. Okay, so you've had an awesome career, and I mean, I love that. It's just I'm thinking through. You've had an awesome career, and also there's a lot going on in front of you. I mean, with the book just now, and then a TV show, and who knows what else that's in the back of your mind that I'm sure are going to happen over the next period of time. You've ended up in a decent place, but if you could go back and tell find yourself 20, let's call it 2021 on the mountain at Mammoth, what would you tell young Barb to do a little differently, if anything?
Believe. I never had the confidence. I never believed in myself. And I still struggle with that. You know, I was nervous to come on your podcast, Jeff.
Oh my
I
gosh.
had I my son is in Dubai and I had a call with him and he like talked me through it. He's like, "Mom, there's nothing to win or lose." Like he was such a sage and he's an actor and he's going through his journey of rejection and learning and making his way. And he said, so he really gave me a great pep talk just to come and do this podcast. And so I hope, in raising him, I really taught him that he can do anything. And that was really important for me in raising him. But yeah, if I was talking to 21-year-old Barb, my mom died when I was young. So I don't feel like I had that person in my corner. So I didn't believe in myself. So that's what I would tell myself is you can do it. You've got it. I always believed there was something else I had to do or be to be worthy.
Wow. I'm so glad that you said that, because I think that'll probably resonate with a lot of people. And I love the idea of going, thinking of that and just believe in yourself. That's a hard thing to do. Look, if I didn't know you, if I didn't hear this just now, I would categorize you as someone who believes in themselves. So how did you summon up whatever it took to move that forward, even in facing this self-doubt?
I guess
Like,
I
if
persevere. I set
yeah,
on a course and I just keep going and going. And I think I've had wins. I definitely have had some wins. I mean, even like I look at the last couple years of the magazine, like I David Yarrow, who I think if people don't know him, he's one of the best photographers in the world. I loved his work. I was so in awe of his work. And he comes to Aspen because there's a gallery here in town that carries his work. And I didn't really know him, but I was like, "Hey, what do you think? Do you ever collaborate?" And he was like, checked out the mag, and he's like, "Well, what are you thinking?" And I said, "Well, I was thinking about Michaela Schifrin and Norway." And he's like, "Okay, I'm listening." And and a month later, we did it. We made it happen. Chelsea Handler, I think I reached out first, I want to say, in like 2017 because I love who she is and how she's herself and she loves skiing and it and I just persist and persist and this last time, I guess I reached out again, and she happened to be, I think actually saw a message on her social and said, "Reach out to my team. Let's talk about it." And again, a month later, we made it all happen. So, I think I've like when I got that job writing for Skiing Magazine, which is no longer in print. I'm still here. Skiing Magazine that started, I want to say, I don't know, I think it was maybe at least 40 years old when it went out of business. I put it out there and they said yes. I said, "Here's my idea. I have an idea," because I met someone. I met Rick Call, who was the editor then, and I said, "I have this idea. I'm thinking a ski racer and a ski instructor." And he's like, "I love it. I'm going to give you a 2-year contract." And I was like,
wow.
What?" I was like in total shock. So I think, sometimes I throw something out there because you don't ask, you don't know. And then something happens. So that gives you a bit of a confidence boost. Like, wow, like a 2-year contract? Are you kidding me? And then the whole thing with wow, you think I could start a magazine? Okay. I'll give it a go. I'll do the work. I'll put some things on paper and those are the things, I try to do more with the tequila is just put it out there, put it out there because you never know who it's going to resonate with.
I like this idea of kind of dealing with the self-doubt by helping yourself look back toward the evidence of your success, right? You make a data informed decision and be like, "Oh, okay, well, I've done these things, and even if I at this moment have some self-doubt, well, maybe there's a scoreboard here. Even if I have self-doubt, there's a scoreboard here that says, well, I can do these things, so let's try to work through this." I think that's a very logical and practical approach. I like that. And for what it's worth, I believe in you. No question. I think if there was like a unique prop bet out there, I would bet on you for success with this TV show and any of the other things. I know this is going to work because it would be silly not to. There's too many data points here that say these are going to work. So thanks for breaking that down. I like that a lot.
And they seem divergent, but they all come from a singular passion point, which is this love for the mountains and sliding on snow. So they wear different clothes or they have different manifestations, but they all come from this one place. So I'm staying in my lane ultimately.
I was thinking about when you were describing here, the Snow Society, and I thought, this is what this really is. This is a way, and tongue in cheek, obviously, just joking, but I was like, this is really facilitating Barb's desire to travel and to get back to Portillo, a couple times a year, and so it does a nice. And I know there's so much more to it than that, and I'm sure that's really not even it. But anyway, I can see the comment. I can see the comment threads there. So Barb, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for just everything, for showing up. And I knew you would, and I knew this was going to be the case, but I still am blown away by the stories, by your vulnerability and your authenticity. So thank you. Just thank you for trusting and just being here for that. It's been really cool. I really enjoy this. I had no idea the conversation on the bus to Stonehenge 15 years ago was going to end up in this conversation, but I'm really grateful it did. So I have one last question for you, if we don't mind. As we come toward, it's starting to snow in the mountains here where we are. So what are you excited about for this year? Anything that's, you're getting excited about ski wise for the upcoming season?
Well, I'm always excited about the new season. I try to make not long a gap. So of course I was in Portillo because I don't want to go that long without skiing. But yeah, I'm just excited to get out on the mountain, and there's so many great ski brands out there. I have a little bit of a quiver, and if you're in my house, you could walk around and see. I have my La Croix over there. I have my Van Deers. I have my Janus ski project skis. But my Instagram handle personally is the Snow Fashionista, and I live for ski fashion. So I'm wearing a Goldberg turtleneck right here. There are so many amazing brands out there. I work closely with Montclair, with you name the brand. I am so privileged to work with them. I got a new kit from Tony Seiler that I'm excited about, and yeah, I just love seeing the creativity and the melding of fashion and function. They're not two totally distinct things anymore. And I'm big on bright and fun and push the envelope, and that's what kind of motivates me to get on the mountain. It's like, well, I got to go wear all my new ski outfits.
I love that. And you know what? It goes back to something I've seen along this conversation, which is you're having fun every single place and you're finding ways and different things to have fun. So for you, part of that, it sounds like, is experimenting and enjoying the bright, fun colors and the new advances and the changes in ski fashion and everything that goes with it and the camaraderie. Earlier in our conversation, you talked about how there's a connectivity with fashion and people. And I think that's right. I mean, everybody is clothed when you're meeting them in public, and there's a connectivity there with people, I think. And I can see that going together with the relationship aspect that I've also heard showing up a lot throughout this podcast. So I'm excited to, I'll be waiting to see those new kits as they show up on Instagram and seeing what they look like, and also, hearing reviews. I'm also looking forward to the new Snow magazine. I seeing the sneak peek cover, it looks awesome. So anyway, Barb, genuinely, thank you for the time today. It's been incredible. I'm really, really, really feel honored that you trusted me to show up today. And so, yes, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Talk soon.